Hiya and welcome back to the Redmen TV. It is an extremely busy Wednesday morning. Why? Because the PFA Awards was last night, and I'm not gonna lie, I made this show yesterday thinking I'll be sad for the next 24 hours. It turns out it wasn't, because Alexander Isak decided to join up, open his mouth. Newcastle then got back involved, and we will get to all of that in the second part of the show. We do have to do some housekeeping and tell you the outs and other bits of news that no one really cares for, but we need to do it anyway. But I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Coughlin and Dan for this one. First of all, did everyone sleep all right?
Yeah, I'm just about.
Did you?
Chloe, come on, always.
I mean, yeah.
Like literally.
You didn't even see the Isak news until this morning. You were asleep.
I was playing footy, to be fair, when that happened. So I literally got off the pitch, went on my phone, and then saw all the chaos that was unfolding. But then, when I got home, slept like a baby. Obviously,
I've
had a busy few days. I really need to sleep.
So there was no. I was very much of the thought of I cannot be arsed. I am bored with this saga. But I did say that we wouldn't start with them, so we're not going to. We're going to start with some of the outgoings. James Pearce has reported that Liverpool are open to loan moves for Lewis Kumas, James McConnell, and Kate Gordon in the last 2 weeks of the summer transfer window. Dan, always coming to you when it comes to the young lads. I think big move for Lewis would be nice, especially after last season. I think he did quite well in Championship. James McConnell, we know, I think slot rates him really quite highly, but needs to get the minutes. And as for Kate Gordon, I feel like he lost his way a little bit last season in the Championship and was probably not favoured in that Norwich side, was it? No,
Norwich, and then Portsmouth latterly after that for the second half of the season as well, because you're right, the Norwich move didn't work out for him at all in terms of playing time, in terms of games. So they shipped him off to Portsmouth, and it's the same story really for the second half of the season, just never got going, which is somewhat surprising, I think. So he definitely falls into the category of those that need a loan. James McConnell's an interesting one. You mentioned Slot's admiration for him there. That was post PSV. He spoke about just how impressed he was by him, and rightfully so. And I think every time James McConnell stepped into the first team, he's done really, really well, actually. So no surprise that he is one getting spoken about in terms of having suitors. I think there were suitors in January, but Liverpool blocked that pathway because they wanted him to stick around, and I don't blame them for that either. And I'm a big admirer of James's too, for what it's worth. So yeah, it'd be nice to see him go and get a loan. What that means in terms of the numbers in that position is interesting. Obviously, we've seen Tyler Morton move on earlier on the window. Stefan Bajcetic comes into this conversation, I think it's fair to say, and whether we think he may well have a role to play. If we allow McConnell to leave on loan, I imagine that means Bajcetic will be sticking around, which is interesting. Lewis Kumas had a good season at Stoke. He probably needs to go up a level. Now, whether that's sort of the lower reaches of the Premier League or the upper echelons of the Championship remains to be seen. I think that's sort of where he fits. And Jayden Danns is probably the other one I bring into the conversation. Scored the other day for the 21s, which is a real positive. He's a lovely goal as well, and he's got a knack of doing that, hasn't he? Let's be honest. And the interesting thing about him is his non-starter of a loan to Sunderland last season. Obviously, gets the move deadline day, I think it was, in January, but literally, I think he went up to the North East once. Like, it just never happened for him at all. So, there's a few interesting conversations there and a few potential interesting loans as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, Chris, James McConnell is the main one. I like Lewis Kumas, I really do. And, I've seen bright sparks of Kate Gordon, but if there's one that I'm going to put my hat on, who I really want to see in the future, it is James McConnell. And he's the one with the most noise around those three that I mentioned. We obviously mentioned Jayden Danns, who I think everyone's really excited about, but with his recent injuries, we don't want to put too much pressure on him. James McConnell, where do you reckon, what kind of move should Liverpool be looking at for him? Where does he need the experience? What would be a club that suited him? What would be a league that suited him? Because I think it's also obvious that he would like to go and get the experience as much as Liverpool want him to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting what the point that Dan makes about lower Premier League versus upper Championship, whereas sometimes I do feel like these kind of players, like McConnell, you almost want them in a team that's going to dominate the ball, to be used to that scenario as opposed to scrapping for it, fighting for it. So maybe higher end of the Championship would perhaps suit him. Just trying to think who started the season well in the Championship. The likes of Birmingham started really well. I know Southampton, Ipswich maybe didn't go off to the starts they wanted overall, but ultimately they're two teams that'll be fighting for promotion, absolutely. I can see that being absolutely something that you can go for. I remember, I think it was his first start in the FA Cup against Norwich, and there was a lovely flighted ball over to Curtis Jones for his goal that day. And immediately everyone then ran over to James McConnell just to kind of show their appreciation of him. And it's one of them where clearly it hasn't gone how we would have wanted it to over the last couple of years. And I do think for young players now, you're seeing the emergence of young players across the planet, and that makes young players want to be more instant in terms of their impacts. So teaching patience is a really important factor in that. I think we're getting to the stage of now with the outgoings in terms of you've got to be a little careful in terms of numbers. I know the topics we're about to talk about will be associated with areas where Liverpool are short in. And I don't want that to become a case where they get even more short. I am really intrigued to see Bajcetic because there really was a player in there. And I just think the amount of football he played didn't allow his body to develop when he first came into the team. And of course, I think the last time he played for Liverpool was against Lask in the Europa League. And that just, his body just wasn't ready to cope with first team football back then. But no, on McConnell, yeah, absolutely. A team where he will be used to being possession would be my priority in terms of a loan move for him.
Yeah, I mean, some interesting facts. I don't think anyone's really too interested right now because of all of the Isak news. But you still want your young lads to go out and get the experience, because I'm about to move on to a certain player, why? And that is Ben Doak, who somehow Liverpool signed for 600,000 from Celtic 3 years ago. He had a decent spell in the Championship last season before quite a horrific injury. But Liverpool have just managed to get a sale of 25 million for Ben Doak to Bournemouth, by the way, which I think is a really good club for him to go to. And Liverpool apparently have put a buyback in there just to protect themselves, Dan. So this is why these, putting these young lads out on loan, letting them get the experience, but most importantly, also putting them in the shop window for the future really does help us.
No, it does, absolutely, yeah. And Liverpool will see that as an exceptional sort of turnaround and exceptional profit as well, because it is exactly that. It's really smart business once again. And Liverpool have made a habit in recent years, and the models changed somewhat. I think it was since Brexit, and the rules changed around what you could do in terms of signing youngsters, but cherry picking, if you'll pardon the pun, when it comes to Bournemouth, the best youngsters from across the UK in terms of the academies and bringing them in. And obviously the ideal scenario is they go on to become first team stars for Liverpool. But if that doesn't happen and they fall short of the mark for whatever reason, whether it be the competition for places, the pecking order, or in certain instances injury, they'll be sold, and they'll be sold for a huge profit, which is exactly the category Ben Doak fits into. So yeah, I think it's good for Liverpool. It's good for Ben, clearly, because he needed the move. I think he was ready for it right now. And what it means for us in terms of sort of the squad depth is a different conversation entirely. But there was always going to be a price, and I mentioned this to Chris upstairs, when it comes to Ben, that Liverpool would just have to accept. I think they'd be quite happy if nobody met the price to keep him around, because we've seen him pre-season, he's a viable option. He's definitely ready for Premier League football. I think the first half of his season last season at Middlesbrough showed that, until it was curtailed, as you mentioned, by the thigh injury that it was. But yeah, I'm pleased for Ben, and I think again it's just more proof if it was needed, and more evidence if it was needed, that Liverpool's strategy of going out and signing, like Kay Gordon fits into this, Ben obviously more recently, of doing that and sort of, like I say, picking the best from the UK is a one that's going to be sort of valid and working. Yeah,
and Chris, Liverpool have done that. I'm pretty sure we've done it to Newcastle quite a few times as well. Bobby Clark did go to Salzburg. Hasn't quite worked out at the moment, but Derby. Derby. He's moved. Oh my God, that's how that went for him. And obviously Pep Lijnders, we know where he is now. But Liverpool are not afraid if they see a really good young talent who they will spend a little bit of cash on because they know they can fluctuate that, then they will. Ben Doak played 10 senior appearances for Liverpool, and somehow they've got 25 mil for him. Make it make sense to me.
Yeah, no, I really do enjoy how Liverpool managed to get a lot of money for players that you don't really see in terms of being a big part of the first team setup in the immediate future. And I agree with what Dan said. I think Liverpool would have been happy to keep hold of him if a club hadn't come in with that price tag. I did a little bit of reading just because whenever a player gets sold, I like to kind of check with sell-on clauses. Like for Luis Diaz, there was no sell-on clause to Porto, and I know it was a compensation, ultimately £600,000 to Celtic, but there's also no sell-on fee negotiated in that. So it looks like Liverpool made the best part of £20 to £25 million, again, pure profit, which is such an important thing to factor in these days. And I remember, pretty sure this was his debut against Aston Villa on Boxing Day just after the World Cup. And he came on, he had a really, really good impact. And you're kind of thinking, right, this lad's really raw, but he's got a lot of excitement about him. And the issue is with Ben Doak is that the injuries combined with the rawness with the lack of end product, I think is what's ultimately not allowed him to really progress at Liverpool. And he's absolutely a player, I think, he goes with everyone's best wishes, really. I think everybody sees the ability.
Has he put out a post to Liverpool? I saw him put out a post basically thanking God and like saying thanks for the opportunity to Bournemouth.
Yeah.
I've not actually seen him say anything to Liverpool, but then again, Isak news dropped and I didn't care about anything
blinded
else.
by everything else. No, I haven't seen that myself, to be honest. I've seen quite a lot of Bournemouth stuff since you've had, and the fact that he's now changed his name. And he's not Ben Doak anymore, he's Ben Gannon Doak. Yeah. That's about all I've seen. I've not seen anything. I'm sure that will come in time because, again, to Chris's point, he goes with all the best wishes. You know, he's very highly thought of down at Liverpool's academy. So, yeah.
On him as well, I just love to think that his rinsing of Gvardiol might have added 5 to 10 mil on.
Well, the debut, he did Luca Dean. He did look at the way there.
I enjoyed that one. I won't lie, we've managed to drag this out for 14 minutes and I think we've done really well there. Well done, guys. We are going to get to a break, but before we do that, we have a special code for you. You can subscribe to Redmen Plus now and watch absolutely everything ad-free over there. It is 50% off a captain yearly, so do go over. That expires the 31st of August. You'll get all of this transfer saga that goes on. You'll get the entire season, hopefully Liverpool becoming champions, and maybe Liverpool will sign another 5, 6, 7, 8 more players by the time it runs out next time. So yeah, do get over there and do sign up to that. But we're going to take a break. Before we do, I'm going to leave you with a question. I reckon 2 weeks ago I was about 100% I was about 90% certain that Alexander Isak was going to become a Liverpool player. Today, I reckon it's dropped by about 40%. Give me your percentages of if Alexander Isak will sign for Liverpool out of 100. See you in a minute.
You win the league and you don't see your medal until the very first training session the next season. And Ronnie Moran would walk in, put the box down on the treatment table, and he said, if you think that you deserved one last season, you can take one out. And he'd walk away.
Yeah, do go and check that out. I'm actually going to hand you over to Dan. Dan, I think it's absolutely a brilliant piece.
Oh, thank you.
And Joe, you can't see him, but Joe put so much work into that as well. Dan, tell everyone why they need to go and watch that.
Yeah, thank you, first off. And I do think it is a really important sort of a documentary, and obviously I made it, so I would say that. But no, I honestly do, and I think the story is a fascinating one. I think some of the names, some of the people involved are really crucial to Liverpool's history and why we are what we are today as well. And the fact that they never got the medals they deserved at the time, it is really interesting and a shame in many ways. And honestly, I can't express enough. You'll see it in the documentary how much it means to them. But it's quite surprising, actually, because we speak now about football, about like the money and, you know, that side of things and the fame that comes with it. Back in the day, they literally played for medals and trophy and to win stuff. John Walker in particular, you'll see it again, tells us that he literally joined Liverpool to win medals.
It wasn't about money back then, was it?
No, money didn't come into it. They got paid well, but they weren't paid anything like what they paid. And that wasn't the be-all and end-all. Like, it wasn't so much about that. It was literally play football to win stuff and to have some acclaim at the end of it. And it took me back, actually, when I was speaking to these players, these legends, just how much, because I was thinking, are they actually going to care that much about a medal that you should have got? But my word, they care. You know what I mean? So yeah, do watch it, and there's some really interesting stuff in it, I think. Yeah,
and I think it's pretty boss as well. So do go over there and watch it ad-free. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's get to your percentages. We've started off with a 10%, which isn't great. I won't lie to you. That was a bit higher than that. We've then gone 85, 80, 50, 80, 30. We will get, obviously, Dan and Chris's in the end, but first of all, we'll talk through it. I mean, 100%. I think you've gone a little too high. I won't lie.
Is that Isak himself?
Potentially.
On an alias account.
20% they've made this too emotional, Newcastle. Today's events make it almost inevitable that Isak has to leave Newcastle. I'm still at 80. I'm enjoying some of the percentages, actually. I thought they were going to be a little bit worse than that. Yeah, the optimism is there. There was some more stuff on Mark Gay, but no one is asked. Absolutely no one. Liverpool are confident for closing the deal. There you go. Have a bit of that. Isak then. That's what I'm here for. And we've got about 40-something minutes to talk about it. Chris, I titled this show today, How Long Can Liverpool Wait on Newcastle and Isak? It turned out I didn't have to wait more than 12 hours from writing that title to find out what Isak's thought process was. It's a big statement from him to come out and do that. I can't understand how if Newcastle had done everything right and hadn't had any problems, why Alexander Isak would put himself out to dry like he has done. When that first dropped, did you think, here we go, it's all going to fall in motion? Or did you think someone's going to have their backs up here?
I thought, first thing when I saw it was, wow. Because it's powerful. I mean, I've got up.
We can read it out for you.
Just looking back through it.
But I think it was more the fact that there was rumours in the day that he wasn't going to show up.
Yeah.
But if someone doesn't show up to a PFA Team of the Year, doesn't really matter. But he came out and decided to put out a tweet. I am about to find it. Sorry, I've clicked on the wrong one. I've clicked on Newcastle's and not Alexander Isak's. You can give me Alexander Isak's if you've got. I've got Newcastle's.
Just starts by saying, obviously, proud to be recognised by the PFA. And then he really gets into the middle of it where he says he wasn't obviously not the ceremony tonight. With everything going on, I didn't feel right to be there. I've kept quiet for a long time while others have spoken. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that promises were made, and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now, and why change is in the best interest of everyone, not just myself, Alexander Isak.
That dropped and I went, oh, go on then. What did you think when he first put that out?
Yeah, I think it's come to boiling point, really. I think that's absolutely the way I look at the situation now. I think it's really quite intriguing that he doesn't see a way back for himself at Newcastle. I think by the way he said the relationship can't continue, I think in his head he's just fully done with Newcastle. The problem is, of course, the contract, the fee Newcastle are commanding. But, he is right in terms of he has kept quiet. Well, there's been a lot of news elsewhere. But to actually, the first thing as well, you check whether this is the actual account. just double check all these things. But he's just stopped short of basically saying he wants to join Liverpool. That is literally the only thing that's really missing from this statement. It's difficult to kind of really know where to go from here. Obviously, Newcastle then retaliated with their own statement. And let's make this clear. For me, reading that was not in any way, shape or form shutting down a transfer of Alexander Isak, because they did not. They categorically did not say he isn't going anyway, staying.
They just said the criteria hadn't been met.
Yeah. So that has not ruled out a transfer, but absolutely, this for me, it's reached the point of, we don't know how this is affecting the lad mentally as well. Yeah. So, it's reached the point of kind of boiling over. It really has for me.
Someone said, should have finished the post, would you never walk alone?
Yeah.
I mean, it would have helped him, I reckon, probably. Dan, when you finished football and read it, I mean, it's the fact that when promises are broken and trust is lost. And I went back to the other day, I thought Newcastle played really quite well against Villa. It was clear that they didn't have a focal point, a striker to put the ball in the back of the net. Then you're hearing their fans sing One Greedy Bastard at full time. And look, I'm sat there thinking, They keep him, he comes on, he scores a couple of goals, they probably forget everything. But Alexander Isak has put himself in a position where he can face so much backlash. He has said promises are broken and trust is lost, the relationship cannot continue. I mean, I don't know how he goes back into that dressing room. And look, Newcastle can come out and say, we're happy for him to rejoin whenever. But sure, if you're a couple of those Newcastle players, if you're Bruno Guimaraes, if you're that midfield, who I think is one of the best midfields in Europe, you're going to yourself, are you taking a piss with me, lad? We're in the Champions League, you know, and I get it because it's Liverpool. But at the same time, it wasn't just a statement that was passive. This was quite aggressive.
Yeah, it was, and there was nothing particularly new in it in terms of information, but when it comes from the horse's mouth, it does add a whole new meaning and weight to it, of course, because there had been a lot of speculation, a lot of reporting, but when Isak himself goes public and says what he said, then yeah, there's no two way. You have to sit up and take notice. And from Newcastle fans' perspective, they'd have been hoping of all hopes that some of it was just, you know, rumours and not actually the truth of the matter. But that isn't the case anymore. And I think you're right. I think it is broken beyond repair. Obviously, in terms of reintegrating him, Eddie Howe would have been keen to do so. I'm sure the football club would have been as well, and fans would have been too prior to this.
They probably should have been 3 points on the board this weekend. And also, I mean, they've not. There's 2 weeks left of the transfer window. You're coming up against Liverpool next. If you had Alexander Isak playing or a forward of some capacity, you'd have a much better chance. Yeah. Look, I'm already worried to go there, but I'm so happy that I'm not going to have to see Alexander Isak up against us.
100%. But like, they might not have had him available anyway if his injury is to be believed. True. You know what I mean? So he might not have actually. No, granted, no. Even in terms of the pre-season or lack thereof, he might not have been up to speed in order to play these games. So it's an absolute mess. It really is, and there's no clear pathway to the end of it now, because as Chris rightly says as well, Isak's come out and said what he said. Newcastle responded in the way that they've said, but they haven't exactly shut down the possibility of an exit. It's just, but in terms of him playing for Newcastle again, I just don't see it. I think there's too much water going under that particular bridge. Newcastle fans, understandably so, idolised and put Alexander Isak, he's done it with number 9s historically, but put them up on a pedestal. He scored the biggest goal in their modern history against us, unfortunately. And they absolutely, you know, deified him because of it. But now, to do this and to act in the way that he's done, that's completely broken. I don't see a world, and I get people, the football fans are fickle. Once he starts scoring again, I don't see that person. I think it's best for all parties at this point that some sort of, you know, solution is found.
Yeah. And who knows, I will read out the Newcastle statement because Newcastle did come out with one. They said, we are disappointed to have been alerted to a social media post by Alexander Isak this evening. We are clear in the response that Alex remains under contract and that no commitment has ever been made by a club official that Alex can leave Newcastle this summer. We want to keep our best players, but we also understand players have their own wishes and we listen to their views. As explained to Alex and his representatives, we must always take into consideration the best interests of Newcastle United, the team and our supporters. They've done really well putting in our supporters there, by the way. Class from them. In terms of, like, just pour more fire on it, like water all over it.
You need to be good guys,
you know, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
They've said in all the decisions, and we've been clear that the conditions of a sale this summer have not transpired. We do not foresee those conditions being met. This is a proud football club with proud traditions, and we strive to retain our family feel. Alex remains part of our family and will be welcomed back when he is ready to rejoin his teammates. So they've not, Chris, said he's not going to leave. They very much said, if conditions are met, then there might be some different outcome. But at the same time, they've also turned around and said, when that doesn't, because we do not think it's going to happen, he will be back playing for us. It's a World Cup year, and that is a thing for me. It's Alexander Isak and it's Sweden, so he's nailed on to play anyway. But I still think he'll want to be in the best shape. What do you think happens from now? Like, there's 2 weeks left of this window, and I didn't think Liverpool had much time to wait on Newcastle or Isak now. I think it's even shorter. It has to come to a conclusion as soon as possible for us, for Isak, but also for Newcastle, because if they get rid of Isak, they need someone else to come and fill his role. Yeah,
the big immovable point of this whole saga for me has been that Newcastle don't need one striker, they need two. And this whole pursuit of Johan Wissa has been to replace Callum Wilson. It hasn't been to replace Isak. And now you're looking at names like Jørgen Strand Larsen, who, had a good season last year for Wolves. But if you're a Newcastle fan, are you thinking, is he really the man to kind of come in and take Alexander Isak's role? Is he that good? Even like the other players I've seen linked, Samu went off injured for Porto on Monday night. So again, that's a spanner in the works there. Shesko, of course, Manchester United. So
Nicholas Jackson's the other one, isn't it?
Nicholas Jackson with 94 months left on his contract at Chelsea. I saw. So
not too bad then.
Yeah. It's a horrible situation for all involved as well.
It feels like I don't want to be a part of it. Usually usually when a player really wants to come to Liverpool, I'm like, oh, stunning. But actually, like, Newcastle's my favourite away ground every year.
Do you feel not embarrassed as such, but just the way it's kind of transpired? Do you feel a bit like kind of shrinking and like kind of like you guys deal with it?
Yeah, like if that was someone trying to move away from Liverpool, I'd be absolute. Like, I can fully understand how Newcastle fans feel, but at the same time, the club can turn around and say, oh, well, we've said conditions haven't been met, but they might have led Isak on. I don't know.
That's the thing, and that's so dependent on who's telling the truth in all of this, really, because Newcastle claim that no club officials ever told Alexander Isak or ever sort of given him any promises, whether it be that around new contracts or pay rises or whatever, or the fact that he can leave the football club. Isak's saying the opposite of that. He's saying that he was told he could leave. He seemingly told Eddie Howe back in March of his ambitions and intentions to leave the football club, reiterated that at the end of the season as well. So Isak thinks Newcastle are going back on their word. Newcastle is standing back going, we never said that. And they might have worded it cleverly. I'm not going to, Paul Mitchell might have been the one saying all these things, he's no longer with the football club. So their wording of no club official has ever told him that's accurate as of today, because he's not there anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a really interesting, but to your point, it is all a little bit undignified. And as a Liverpool fan, and I'm sure Liverpool's a football club, Richard Hughes, that's how we'll be looking at it going, it's a little bit messy that, but ultimately, he's our Virgil van Dijk. Like, are we willing to wait for him? You know what I mean? He's clearly the one we want. We haven't
That's
even,
the big comparison.
Seemingly not even considering alternative options. Yeah. So we're so desperate for Isak that I don't think they really care how messy and undignified it is.
Yeah.
I am extremely relieved, by the way, that Ekitike has come through the door. Because if this had been the situation now, without Ekitike, I'd have been a bit stressed. Just given the situation that would have been up front. I
have enjoyed, I mean, the biggest win out of all of this weekend might be Luke Edwards, sadly. But I think it's Luke Edwards anyway. But I'm pretty sure Steve called him out because he said if Ekitike would have just came to Newcastle, he could have had Isak. However, in his report was no, they want Isak and they want Ekitike to play together up top. So, a lot of people can say things and just go back on them.
That is the sticking point. Sorry, that is the sticking point in the replacement, as Chris rightly says. But I do wonder whether we're getting to a point now where the relationship is so severed between Isak and Newcastle that they might just look at it and go, let's bring Visa in and let's cut our losses a little bit. If they can, but that situation in itself down at Brentford's an absolute shit show.
It's also not a lot of people blaming Liverpool as if 120 million is not a decent fee. I don't think that's a bad fee. I mean,
British transfer record.
Yeah. Do I think you probably need to go 130, maybe even 135? Yeah, I do. But I don't think we've not gone to them and gone 80 million. 150 to have 80. We've not done that.
Well, do you think that's the condition that's not been met? Do you think it's the valuation, or do you think it's the replacements?
I think if Liverpool had gone in with 150, I reckon Newcastle would have done well to say no, because ultimately that's the figure that's been kind of put around all summer in terms of saying that's what they want. But I know transfer fees have gone through the roof. But this is a lad. Again, this is me almost trying to downplay Alexander Isak here, but he's had one season in the Champions League. He's won one League Cup at Newcastle. I know not a club that historically won trophies, but still, you're talking, again, I've been looking at several different ones throughout the summer, different players. For example, what Southampton, I've said they want for Tyler Dibbling, for example. So I've then been looking at Harvey Elliott and say, okay, he's now £100 million compared to what Tyler Dibbling is. So I get transfer fees are going through the roof, but I think Liverpool value Isak at around 120. Yeah. I think that's fair value. That's my perspective from this.
Dan, is it fair value?
Maybe 125. Maybe.
For what he's worth to Newcastle, and the contract length makes that problematic. I tend to agree, generally speaking, but
contract length is actually 3 years,
and also for how it looks from an optics point of view at Newcastle, because they're seemingly on this pathway, or they like to believe on this pathway to bigger things. The project is what the project is. They've got the richest owners in the world. So for us to just go up there and come back with their prized possession, you're always going to have to pay over the odds. I think for what it's worth, the 130 upwards is over the odds for Isak for all the points you just made. But again, I come back to it. Because of what Newcastle believe they're on the road to becoming, you're always going to have to pay above that.
Yeah, you are. Thank you so much to the super chat from S. Jolson68. Isak can't be held hostage to 150 million whilst he's on 120k a week. That's nonsense. And if the club isn't going to give him a new contract with improved wages, they should let him go, as we did with Lucho. I think they've tried to give him a new contract. I just don't think he's interested in that contract. The problem that you have is they've got big owners. They've got a decent amount of money. They've got a decent squad. They feel like they can fight for things, not Premier Leagues, but they can be in the Champions League, and we've seen them have a decent run in that. They can pick up cups. And to them, Alexander Isak is probably worth 150 million. To Liverpool, he's probably not worth that money. And that is where we've got the problem. The problem is I'm not sure a compromise will be made, because I don't see Liverpool going 140. Like, I don't see them doing that. I don't see Liverpool putting themselves in that position. But I also think there's something about Newcastle where they think to themselves, we're not having this. We're not looking like this.
Stand firm on it.
Yeah. What do you think Newcastle will stand firm?
They certainly have until this point, and they're doing everything in their power to sort of carry that through and to show that they aren't going to be bullied in any way, shape or form. But the issue is, and it comes back to them being incapable of signing a replacement or footballers, full stop, really, this summer, and they've missed out on so many of their targets. They haven't exactly got the best-in-class operating things up there right now. So it is literally the owners who are saying this isn't happening, not on our watch. So I get that, but I don't think Liverpool will acquiesce to Newcastle's demands, because we don't roll over for anybody, whether it be selling, because we've seen Liverpool extract some of the best value in terms of what we've sold this summer and beyond. But also at the same time, I do think there is a compromise to be made, and I come back to it. And I think Keith Downey said similar this morning, obviously the North East reporter for Sky, that if Newcastle just get one through the door and Liverpool do go back with an improved offer, I think, again, I come back to it, I think it's best for all parties, because what's the value from Newcastle other than saving face? What's the value in then keeping Alexander Isak up there now? Let's be honest. And the held hostage thing is clearly extreme, but we aren't. I mean, if he's just flat out refusing to play football, as ugly as that is, like, that's the situation that we're in right now. I don't see him kicking the ball for Newcastle again, whatever happens. Come September the 2nd, if he's still a Newcastle player, in inverted commas, I don't see him putting that shirt on again. So who wins there? Nobody. They haven't got the 130 million that they need for PSR reasons, as rich as the owners are. We haven't got the football that we wanted, and Isak's not playing football. Like, who benefits there? You know what I mean?
The other thing is you're not just kicking it down the road as well. Like, in next summer or in December, Liverpool not going to come knocking again. He's got like the year less on his contract, and the longer you let it go on, the less his value is. The more the cards are in his hands, and the more Liverpool are going, okay, well, anyone else that you want, like, you just want Ekitike, well, we took him off you as well. So, like, look at the market right now.
That's the thing. Nobody's backing down.
The other problem is for Newcastle is, and look, I think they should stand firm in a way, because if I was in their position, of course I wouldn't want my best player leaving to go, not to a rival, because I don't think they're rivaling us for the Premier League, but they're certainly making it harder for them to win competitions. But what I would say is that it is also Liverpool. Liverpool have just won a Premier League. You know, they went quite far in the Champions League. They've signed down Salah, Virgil. They've brought in Florian Wirtz already. They've improved the fullbacks. They've done a lot of work. You can see the projects there. Newcastle are looking round going, every striker, João Pedro, gone. Gyökeres, gone. Sesko, gone. Cunha, gone. Like, Vissa is your only hope. And I don't know where you turn to if Brentford don't let him go. Ekitike got off to us because he didn't want you. Like, it is slightly also embarrassing for them at the fact that everyone they've gone after is just... Colin Milani decided to go to Juve again.
Yeah. On Wissa as well, it's exact same domino effect as what you've said. Because he pretty much doesn't want to play... He doesn't want to put a Brentford shirt on again. Exactly. He's been training with players that Keith Andrews has said aren't part of the first team setup. So then if he doesn't join, unless he has the ultimate U-turn, because I think he's only got a year left on his contract, unless I'm mistaken. So then if he doesn't play, then for Brentford, he's not playing for Brentford. Newcastle haven't got their striker, and he's just sitting there doing nothing. And then that's a domino effect of the exact same thing at Liverpool. So it is bizarre. I haven't known a summer like it in terms of strikers, and I also haven't known a summer like it in terms of a single club getting rejected in one position by so many. And I think the most frustrating things for Newcastle fans is probably they're looking at their club thinking, in their lifetimes, this is the best situation the club has ever been in, and somehow they're getting into even more of a mess than they have been in. Yeah. So this whole situation is just utterly bonkers. It
is bonkers, Dan, and I don't really want to sit here and say, do Liverpool or should Liverpool have a backup option? However, there is no way that Liverpool can go into this season, for me, without another defender and another attacker, and a decent attacker at that. Look, I love Federico Chiesa, I'll be the first to say it. But if Hugo Ekitike got injured or we couldn't put too much pressure on him, Cody Gakpo last year had quite a couple of injuries. You've lost Luis Diaz. Yeah. Sadly, we've also lost Diogo Jota, as we know. Ben Doka's now gone. Rio is dead young, and I'd love to see more of him, but he is still really young and no one wants to put pressure on him. Mm-hmm. Liverpool have to do some sort of business, and there will have to be a cut-off date, surely, where Liverpool turn somewhere else. I get they can come back. You can still come back in a year's time and go and put the money on the table for Alexander Isak, but Liverpool need someone if that doesn't happen. Yeah,
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with all of that. They mentioned Darwin Núñez there in the exit.
I didn't.
Quickly forgotten Darwin, isn't he? It's funny that. No, I agree.
Probably because I've hardly seen him score goals.
Liverpool, having said all of that, the party line, the briefing yesterday seemed to be that it is Isak or nothing, or Guehi or nothing really, which I'm not entirely comfortable with. I think to your point, it's worrying, and it's been quite stark actually in the opening two games, in inverted commas, competitive wise, of the lack of options we have, and they've obviously decreased since with Ben Doak's exit. Liverpool have been saying, Arne Slot has been saying all the right things when it comes to Rio, but I think when push comes to shove in a big game, 70 minutes in, you need someone. I don't see him turning to him necessarily. That's not to say he's not talented enough.
Games have shown that.
Exactly, I just don't think he's ready enough for that necessarily. So yeah, and we are putting a lot of faith in nobody, certainly not the first choice lads, breaking down, whether that be with a short, medium or long-term injury. And we've been in this position before at the back. We're in it again at the front and at the back, probably one of the two most pivotal areas, the spine of the team, if you like. And yeah, it's a concern to me that the reporting is that it's Isak or nobody. I'll be dead honest with you, because I just don't think we have one of Liverpool's major strengths last season was the firepower, and it was the fact that we had 6 first-choice senior attackers essentially, and you could interchange them, you could make substitutions, and it didn't weaken the team any at all to do so. As we sit here right now, that's far from the case. Ekitike has been exceptional. Yep. So let's have it right, but behind him, is it a little bit of Chiesa up top? Jadon Danns, we spoke about before. Are we realistically talking about that as a viable option? I just don't see it personally. So yeah, Liverpool's stance of, if we don't get the main guy that we want, again, it's Van Dijk all over again, isn't it? But we won't do anything, is a major concern to me.
Yeah, it's a major concern for me, and something that I think's being floated around is, if you don't get Isak, Chris, do Liverpool go for a versatile winger who can do a bit of what Luis Diaz did? Obviously, we've seen Florian Wirtz drop into that number 9, do the 2 10s. It's not worked out so far. When he has done it, obviously, it's like 2 games in now, so that's a thing. But if Liverpool don't go and get Alexander Isak, what do you think their next move will be? Let's say in mind that they will go and target someone else. Do you reckon it will be a striker, or do you reckon it'll be a winger and they'll wait for Isak next year?
I think the striker market now has become so depleted this summer. I don't know who would be available.
Just go and get Isak.
Because we talk about the quality, we're not just talking about anyone. The reason why Liverpool held out for Virgil van Dijk all those years ago was because he was the centre half that the club believed would take Liverpool to the next level, and they got it absolutely spot on. Yep. The reason why they're holding off Isak is because they believe Isak is the forward that will take Liverpool to the next level, and he could well be the guy that does that. You hear all the kind of the Rodrigo talk. For me, I think it's not as if Real are going to let him go on the cheap either. And I think his wages, we talk about the wages Isak is on. Rodrigo is already on monstrously high wages at Real Madrid. So what would he want to come to Liverpool? I think you look at Diaz in the positions he played last year, and maybe you could look at the versatility there. Liverpool haven't just lost a brilliant left winger. They've also lost someone that could at least do a shift as the number 9.
And at times the right winger, when Salah wasn't there.
Yeah,
so.
and also that is a factor we have got to consider here. If we talk about the forwards, Chiesa, Gakpo, Ekitike, Salah around December time to the middle of January is going to be at AFCON, and Frimpong, we're led to believe, is going to be pushed up to the right wing. And I just hope, fingers crossed, we'll hear from Arne Slot later this week. Hopefully that hamstring twinge was just a twinge and he caught it before anything bad happened, because that's not something, again, you're already digging into the reserves of everywhere on the pitch. So I think in terms of players Liverpool could look for, I wouldn't be against a versatile winger, but you are ultimately looking at the quality and someone that kind of digs into the work ethic. Because my one issue with Rodrigo would be, and as much as we also hear and believe Liverpool are the biggest football club in the world, there's a certain club in Spain that try to claim that tag as much as possible.
And let's be honest, they are probably correct in terms of...
So no one to miss it, but
And anyone that leaves Real Madrid, do they see that as a step down, ultimately, anywhere they go? So I want a player that comes in with the correct attitude as well as the quality.
Yeah, I get that point, and you're not wrong in saying it, but I do wonder whether someone like Rodrigo might... It feels as though he's a little bit pissed off about sort of being shoved to one side, and maybe he might look at that. I'll
he was
prove
quite
you
a
wrong.
big player for them 2 seasons ago, and now they've signed everybody.
The stock of it's ridiculous. But it's a fascinating one. But to the point again, I come back to it. Like Liverpool, for me, have to be smart. And we are smart in the market more often than not.
There's enough intelligent people in the hierarchy to get it right in the next 10,
if Isak unattainable, we have to act. And it probably isn't an out-and-out 9, because, again, I don't think the guy's there that fits that criteria for what we're looking for and is at the level we need. But there's got to be something we can do to add to bolster the options up there, because we are light right now.
We are very light, and that is quite a concern. Someone said, do you think this is on hold until St James' game is played? Newcastle won't want Isak scoring against them at home. I mean... I don't think it was going to get done before then anyway, but do you think something might ramp up after that game of football then?
That's been a bit of a staging point for me for a few weeks now. Obviously last night's bombshell statements of that changed the perception somewhat, but I've often thought over this whole saga, which has now become maybe that game that everyone wants to get that out of the way, because you're right, Isak, again, whether he'd been available or not is a different conversation, whether he'd wanted to play, because that is going to be some atmosphere, it will be anyway, brace ourselves for that, by the way. It's going to be a bear pit, that.
If he'd have came to us, I don't think he goes near that game of football, I really do.
He'd have wanted to.
He'd have wanted to, but I don't think we should have, because I genuinely think he'd have been ripped apart all game. Jesus. And look, there's certain lads who like to silence crowds, and he's got the quality to do that, but... I already think Newcastle is such a tough away day. The crowd, the atmosphere is incredible. There is a reason it is my favourite away day every single year. It's because they create such an atmosphere. They're always up for it. It's always a tough game. Anthony Gordon loves to play against us for some reason. We all know the reason. And I felt like, for me, nothing would really happen. Or if it had happened, I didn't think Isak would be a part of it, because you just don't put him in the limelight of being absolutely...
You throw him to the wolves, aren't you, a little bit?
Be targeted by likes of Joelinton, Dan Burn.
Injuries.
Joelinton.
Oh my
Good
God.
Lord.
What odds is he for a yellow card?
Oh my, well, I think Simon Hooper's...
I honestly, someone might get a red card in this game of football.
They did last year for us, but it's almost nailed on. I'd say there's so much conversation and narrative and storyline to be had around the whole thing. It's going to be a really interesting watch for all those reasons. But yeah, to the point, I wouldn't be shocked at all if there was a big sea change and a twist come sort of next week, post game, because it's a big one.
So when do you think Liverpool A, have a backup plan? Because I'm not sure they do. Do you think there is a cut-off date? And if so, when is that cut-off date? And finally, if it's... I assume you've already said it. Is it a versatile forward and not a number 9?
Yeah, it has to be versatile forward for me, and I think we'll return for Isak when the time's right, whether it be January or the summer, whatever that looks like, and how they'll analyse there. So yeah, versatile forward. Liverpool, I do believe Liverpool have a backup plan. Again, I come back to it. I think the people in the room are too smart not to, and I think a lot of the reporting yesterday was just around sort of forcing the hand or showing Newcastle that, listen, we're all in on Isak and we haven't got anybody else. I'm not entirely sure that's true personally. And what was the other one? Sorry, this cut-off date. Yeah, listen, come next Tuesday, which obviously the post-match, we are less than a week away from the deadline, so it's probably going to have to be then. We've got to see some serious, significant movement by this time next week. Otherwise, Liverpool will just have to move on. So yeah, brace ourselves, I think it's fair to say.
It's going to be fun. Hopefully for Liverpool, not for Newcastle.
Could do percentages.
Yeah, we will do that in a minute. I've got a tweet up because, of course, I do. Don Hutchinson, can't believe I'm about to say this, because if life was this easy, Chris, you know, I'd have done this from the start probably. Yeah. He's came out and said if I was Liverpool, he spelt I'd incorrectly, but that's besides the point. He said, I'd bid for Julian Alvarez, could be a better fit with Ekatike plus Vert, sharp number 9. Now, I love Julian Alvarez, absolutely, would possibly be my number 1 target any day of the week anyway. But the world doesn't work like this. But your thoughts on Don just saying go and get Julian Alvarez, really?
Yeah, has he got a early release Football Manager? Look, I said earlier in the summer that if I was going to pick the striker Liverpool went for, or the forward Liverpool went for, it would have been Julian Alvarez. Yeah. Just because I thought he was the best suited to the system. I just thought he was so versatile. The goal he scored for Atletico the other day, free kick, absolutely sensational goal. And he just fits so many systems. The problem is you're talking less than a year ago, he joined Atletico for 95 million euros, so best part of 80 million quid. I think obviously on a long-term contract, and they're not all of a sudden going to go, oh, go on, yeah, we'll drop that valuation just because Liverpool are going to come in. You're talking there about another player that will cost a minimum of £100 million because he is a quality football player. And
also, I'm sorry, he's Spanish. And
no, he's not.
Argentinian, sorry.
Speaks the language.
He enjoys. He would. I can't express my happiness when he left Manchester City because I won't lie. I thought he was one of the best footballers and attackers in world football for all of the reasons we mentioned. Versatile forward, can play across all the front 3 positions, and you had Erling Haaland on the pitch, who was a goal scorer like no one else, and yet Julian Alvarez had come on for the last 15-20 minutes, and he'd get 2 goals here. He'd always impact the game. He's sensational. And he wanted that move and he wanted to go to Spain as well. I'm not sure you can lure him back to England once again and say, come and play in this pissing down rain. Who knows?
It's been a nice summer.
I also...
No, he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable.
I also thought last year, by the way, it showed how much City missed him because they didn't bring in a striker for when Haaland didn't play. And I just thought they really suffered in that because... They didn't have Alvarez then to turn to. And I get Alvarez went to Atletico to play regular football, which he should be doing because he's a fantastic football player. Mm-hmm. But again, you're talking about less than 2 weeks to the deadline. It's not that straightforward. Now, and I remember Gary Neville saying, right, about, and I don't associate Liverpool with this whatsoever, but he said he associated clubs that act later in the window as unorganised clubs. And Liverpool aren't unorganised at all. They've just had their heart set on a player and then realised that maybe it was a more difficult situation than they envisaged. But whoever Liverpool go for, because I do agree with Dan, I do think Liverpool have to have a backup. It's getting to the point where maybe from this time next week, Tuesday next week, it's it's getting a bit sticky to kind of get a deal over the line. Yeah,
Liverpool will have to pivot, otherwise it'll be a major misstep. It'd be nice to pivot to Julian Alvarez. I just don't envisage a world where that's plausible right now. If we've been dragged into this saga somewhat, we might have thought it might be straightforward. We'll give you 110 million and he's ours. Not quite the case. So Liverpool don't like going this deep into the window. It's very rare that we do it. Like we signed Wataru Endo 2 years ago yesterday, and I feel like that was our cut-off point for business at that moment. So Gravenberch took a bit longer at that moment as well, but realistically, it's not very us. This isn't very us. But we're acting in a manner this summer that isn't befitting of Liverpool generally. We are acting out of the ordinary. I love it, by the way, but it's not something that we become accustomed to.
What do you think Liverpool's next move are? Because it feels like Liverpool has just kind of stayed out the way and let Isak and Newcastle go at it. But do Liverpool just go and knock on the door and say, okay, we were going to do 120, we'll do 130. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a couple of things at play there. I think it's either we speak to Isak's representatives. You're not allowed to do that, by the way. Don't do that. And he hands in a transfer request, which he won't do potentially for a number of reasons. Or,
is it this bonuses thing that I keep hearing about?
Or we just put a bid in and we show them the colour of our money again.
I think Liverpool test the water again before the end of the window.
Or the Vissa thing happens and then we are inclined to bid off the back of that potentially. One of those three.
Yeah, it is a little bit funny that they've not been able to sign anybody, but at the same time, if Brentford could just let Vissa go, it might really help me out. So,
well, Newcastle have signed a couple of players, but nowhere near as many as they wanted, and not probably. They haven't acted like a club with the ambitions of the owners that they have right now.
Well, I wonder when Batata goes to Brentford if you'll see that domino effect really start.
I thought so, but it hasn't. They're viewing him in the same conversation we're having about Wilson and Isak. Yeah. They're viewing him as the Mbeumo replacement. Yeah. So Brentford are digging their heels in over here.
It's all a bit of a knock-on effect where I wouldn't say I'm happy with the way Isak's gone about it, but also at the same time, if he gets to Liverpool and I'm not really bothered, Newcastle will be fuming at Isak, but if Vissa does the same to Brentford, they'll be more than happy. So it is a big domino effect going on. I do have to put it on your toes though. I need a percentage of how likely Alexander Isak will be in red of Liverpool come September the 2nd. I want the percentage, but I also want the fee.
Okay.
And if it doesn't get done, I want the player that we will sign.
Gee.
That last one was
Thank
a
you so
curveball,
much,
wasn't it? I didn't see that coming. I'll go.
Rob,
you can give me a couple.
I'll do it. 85% certain Alexander Isak is the Liverpool player come September the 2nd.
Okay, so you don't even need to answer the last one, really.
No, I still will if you want, because there's 15% out there. For 130 million plus 15 million in achievable add-ons. There you go. I've even wrote the tweet that they're going to put out. 130 plus 15 achievable add-ons, Champions League, Ballon d'Or, that sort of stuff. And the alternative, I see Liverpool going down a different route. I don't see us going Rodrigo, to be honest. As much as I think he was a genuine option for us, I think we target somebody else like a Malik Fofana. Let's go with him instead.
Yeah, I like that. Because there's been a lot of link for that, hasn't there? Do you mind if I nick him? I think off the top of my head.
Feel free.
No, I'm the other side of the angle. I think I think there's a lot of blocks that would need to be moved for Isak to be a Liverpool player. I'm going to go 35%. I just think there's a lot of stuff that would need to be done, and if it isn't done, if it isn't even beginning to move by this time next week, I would have my doubts. But I think around 120 to 130, I think, would be a compromise. I think that's depending on Newcastle at least getting Wissa. And given that I've actually been links, I'll go for Fofana. I'll just join on with that.
Fair enough.
Chloe, what about you?
I'm going 50-50.
Okay. Straight down the middle.
Splinters?
No, if I'm being honest, I think it is... I'd be more on Chris's side right now. I'm sorry. And I think that's just me being scared.
Well over half full, that, isn't it?
I am a little scared that Liverpool do not have a backup plan. I'm a little scared that we're running out of time more than anything.
Can I tell you, this is completely off topic, so bear with me. Are you more scared that we haven't got a backup for Isak or Guehi?
Both. I think the problem is I could say one day Guehi, because I think that is massive.
Yeah.
Because I think Canate started crap. I think Joe Gomez, who knows where he is. He played 20 minutes, yada. Leone looks really good from what I've seen, but he's a young kid.
Never kicked the ball in the Premier League.
Exactly. However, at the same time, I also then go up front and think to myself, if someone gets injured, or Salah's missing, or it is literally we're in deep shit in both.
Do you know what's funny? I think we're obviously targeting Guehi and Isak as absolute prime target, laser focus on the pair of them. And if we get both of them over the line, I don't want to sit here and say it's a done deal for the Premier League because that's foolish and arrogant, and I'm not that guy. But it feels close to that. But if we don't, it's open season.
Oh my
literally
God.
open. You know what I mean? That's how fine a line we're walking here.
If we don't, and to think like at the start of this window, I'd have sat here and gone, oh my good God, like we've signed Florian Wirtz, Frimpong, we've signed all these boss players. Ekatike, like you'd sit there to yourself going, I'm stunning that. And yet if we start this season without 2 more players in the door in those 2 positions, I am petrified.
Could you lose Diaz and Quansah?
Yeah.
If you choose them to, you know, Darwin instead, that's fine. But that's a big loss in terms of what we had. Do you know what I mean? So it's
the amount of fans of other clubs that I've seen say if Liverpool sign Isak and or Guehi, then it's done deal. So clearly there's a fear factor from others. Yeah. There's a fear factor from us in terms of saying, look, get these players through the door, because I do think Liverpool are short. To answer your question, I think I'm a little bit more concerned about the forward line now because there are at least options to shift around that back line.
I don't like any of them.
Not ideal, but there are at least options. But I think if Liverpool don't get Isak and or Guehi, there's a fear factor from the Liverpool side. If they do, the rest of the league is terrified.
Yeah, could you imagine? If we get those 2 deals done before the end of the window, that is the greatest transfer window that I've ever seen Liverpool do.
Well, people, you got people doing their predictions now, and a lot of people might have Liverpool in 3rd. Gary Neville, I think, falls into that kind. But you can guarantee it now. But if you go to them, back to them on September the 2nd, and we've got Isak and Guehi wearing Liverpool shirts, that he will turn around and say it's game over.
Yeah.
I don't know. Obviously, I'm not Gary Neville, thankfully.
I mean, he still puts Man United in the top 4, so we really can't.
It'd be difficult for him because of his bias and his blinkers, obviously. But I imagine a lot of people would fall into that. They're not certain about Liverpool, maybe off the evidence of Friday, maybe off what we've lost in terms of the squad. But if we get the Easter over the line, it's a completely different ballgame.
It is, and Liverpool have 2 weeks to try and get both of those deals over the line. I mean, it feels like it's not down to us either on them. There's other factors at play. But let's hope that Liverpool will have 3 more points on the board by the time we do another one of these shows against none other than Newcastle. I've just seen someone put in the comment section, could you imagine if we just went and got Anthony Gordon right now and then went and got...
Crossed my mind, that.
Yeah Anthony Gordon now, Isak in the summer.
You know why we wouldn't? And I'm sure we'd like to for lots of reasons. The football of the years, the football club that he supports. We wouldn't go back to Newcastle. No. I don't think we'd deal with Newcastle. If this doesn't happen, the Isak thing, I just think we'd wash our hands with them for a little bit personally.
Yeah. Let's hope it does happen though, because that is the outcome that we all want. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a lovely rest of your day. And until the next one, up the Reds.